Open Veins of Latin America, 5 centuries of the pillage of a continent. In 1871, the Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano published Open Veins of Latin America. In this book, Galeano argues that the success of the first world countries, first Europe and later on North America, was possible because of the infinite natural resources found in Latin America since colonial times, and that its exploitation boosted the growth of these countries to make you up questioning, is Latin America a region condemned to humiliation and poverty? When this book was published, Central and South America were being hit by political economic instability, and most of them were ruled by a systematic military dictatorship. Because of that, the military in Uruguay, Chile, and Argentina banned it as it was considered a corruptory youth and highly left-winged. However, prohibiting something just made people want it more. From reading out loud on a bus to hiding it in her baby's diaper, citizens craved to read it. They wanted to know the truth of their past, and Galeano was ready to tell everyone, no matter their age, race, or language. As he said, this book was written to have a talk with people, and using everyday language make it easier to understand their history, present, and what to expect from their future. Open Veins of Latin America is divided in 3 parts. Mankind's poverty as a consequence of the wealth of the land, development is a voyage with more shipwrecks, and 7 years after. In the first chapter, Galeano introduces the conquering times and talks about the white men who found a continent rich in plants, mines, and exotic cultures. But the white men craved gold like hundreds wine, and also severed natural resources and the white gold, and took with them everything they could. In their way, they destroyed communities, leaving behind only big floods of blood of thousands of innocent lives staining the cities. Yellow fever, smallpox, tetanus, and other epidemics. In the second part of this book, Galeano talks about industrialization and free trade. In contrast with Great Britain, neither Spain nor Portugal invested in their colonies, and their industry worsened during the independence periods. The first world countries were highly superior to the limited ones in Latin America, making it impossible to compete against them. Great Britain and North America tried to help these countries during the revolution, but development only developed inequality and created a dependent relationship between them. When Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, and other conquerors took America as their own, they imposed new laws, norms, language, religion to make them do what they wanted. In contrast to the United States, Latin America had a variety of resources that amazed these countries, and they did not hold it to exploit as much as they could from them. When silver mines were discovered in Potosí, Bolivia, and Zacatecas and Guanajuato in Mexico, the silver exploitation was so big that in 3 centuries, Spain got enough metal from Potosí to make a silver bridge from the tip of the cerro to the door of the royal palace across the ocean. Indigenous people, as well as the thousands slaves brought, were humiliated by white men who punished them with horrible and cold-blooded death, either in the mines or on plantations. This genocide led to the loss of culture. White men expressed their contempt to the different races, and even sculptors, architects, engineers, and others were sent to the mines, confused by the slaves. People were told what to wear or did not adorate gods anymore. They resigned their belief and converted to Catholicism, assisting one of the dozen of churches built at that time. Apart from that, Galeano made a clear point that the regions now most underdeveloped and poverty-stricken are those in which in the past had had the closest links with the metropolis and had enjoyed periods of boom. Every time the first world countries found a new raw materials to exploit, big flows of workers and the families were moved concentrating the population in those cities and impoverishing the other ones. By the end of the century, each region became identified with what it produced, and each produced what Europe wanted. In places like Brazil, Bolivia, Cuba, and other countries in Latin America, monoculture was the principal economic activity. Sugar plantations, as well as the cacao or the quebracho forest, and many other monocultures, drain the natural wealth of the regions around. No pastures or crops have the opportunity to grow around, as their toxic gases impoverishes the soils. The more a product is desired by the world market, the greater the misery it brings to the Latin American people whose sacrifices creates it. Apart from that, people did not have the protein necessary to survive and suffer starvation. The salaries were almost inexistent, and the working conditions were even worse. Latin America's blood gave Europe its industrialization, and in exchange, they were left with devastated countries without the machinery to improve. Free trade led to replacing international products with international ones, creating a fall in the small industries and a big dependence on Europe and North America, who left the colony times behind and developed as an autonomous economy. During the last century, petroleum became vital to the world's industry and military activities. According to Galeano, the United States poured minerals and natural resources, depending on foreign sources to get it. So it got involved in different dictatorships and wars between Latin America countries to benefit from them. Its imperialist corporations were interested in appropriating the black gold and minerals in places like Venezuela or Brazil. Even though the resources were in that part of the continent, Latin America continues exporting its employment and poverty, the raw materials that the world market needs and whose sale the regional economy depends. The US enjoyed high revenues from it, but for the country producers, the prices were low.